Hey, HorseCenter fans. Matt and I are coming at you with two-year-olds, Los Alamitos Futurity and the Starlet this Saturday at Los Al. But more than that, Matt, we have a big show.
We sure do. And hey, Brian, we're doing the Los Alamitos Futurity. Let's do our Kentucky Derby top 10s for the first time for the 2019 Run for the Roses.
It's too early. Kentucky Derby. It's never too early. Let's do it. Watch it now, all right here on HorseCenter. Welcome to another edition of HorseCenter, everyone. I am Brian Zipsy, and as always, I have the extra special pleasure of being joined by my co-host to the East Coast. That's Matt Schiffman. How are you today, Matt?
I'm good, Brian. I have the extra special privilege of doing this show with you, Brian. I don't know, we're about, 5 months from the Kentucky Derby?
Yeah, 5 months, Matt. That sounds about right. We're well into December already, and I think is it too early to talk Kentucky Derby, Matt? It's too early, isn't it?
It's never too early, Brian, to talk Kentucky Derby. So let's make this a Kentucky Derby show.
All right, we'll do it. And Matt, I appreciate the spirit. It's fun. It's fun to talk about Kentucky Derby. Now, last year, of course, it was the first year where a horse who did not run at 2 for, Matt, longer than we've been alive combined, won the Kentucky Derby. But most years, we've seen the horse run by now as a 2-year-old. So we're going to talk about our top 10 2-year-olds. The first time we're doing it for 2019, folks. So that'll be fun. But first, we're going to go out to Southern California because there's a big day of 2-year-old racing, Matt, out at Los Alamitos. 5th race and the 7th race on the card. Saturday at Los Al, we have the Los Al Futurity being the 5th race. Let's talk about the boys first, Matt. And I think the first thing we have to mention when we talk about the Los Al Futurity is one Bob Baffert.
Yeah, we sure do. If I am correct, Brian, all 4 runnings of this race at Los Al have been won by Bob Baffert. And back in the day when the race was run at was it Hollywood Park, Brian?
Sure, Futurity.
He won the race a whole bunch of other times. So, yep, and Mr. Baffert's got 2 in Los Al Futurity. No doubt there'll be the 2 favorites in there with Improbable and Mucho Gusto. We saw Improbable, Brian, on the Breeders' Cup undercard run a very impressive race. He's 2 for 2. Same connections as Justify for Improbable. Good speed figures out of both of those races. He beat a pretty nice horse in that race at Churchill Downs by 7 lengths. He's a City Zip out of an AP Indy mare. It's all good for Improbable and Mucho Gusto. Another nice one for Baffert, also 2 for 2, was the winner of the Bob Hope going 7 furlongs. That's a grade 3.
Right, Matt. Obviously, the 2 Bob Bafferts will be the 2 favorites in here. I think Improbable is the one to beat. Improbable will be the favorite. Hey, Matt, if you just look at it on paper, the street sets, the race he won on the Breeders' Cup card was as impressive as Game Winner. Now, of course, Game Winner overcame a lot of good horses, and it was a different kind of test for Game Winner. So I'm not saying Improbable was as good. But if you look at the speed figure, you look the way he won, yeah, Trophy Chaser's a pretty fast horse from Florida. It was a very impressive performance. I like the fact that he's already been tested in a tough finish in his maiden race. He's run fast both times, sprinting and then a mile. This will be his first try at 2 turns, so that's a test. He's also down on the rail, so I think that's a test. If you want to try to beat him in here, I think there are questions he still needs to answer in the Los Al Futurity. So trying to beat Improbable at even money, more power to you. I think it's possible that he gets beat. You mentioned Mucho Gusto, the other Baffert, and he's just been full of speed. He's a son of Mucho Macho Man out of a Giants Causeway mare. So there's reason to believe he will stretch out. But in 2 sprints, including last time in the Bob Hope, he flashed a lot of early speed. And I imagine they'll try to temper that down just a little bit in here, Matt. But there is other speed in the race. Savagery chased him in the Bob Hope last time, although he's getting blinkers off this time. So there is speed. Improbables on the rail. Is there an upset possibility in here?
I guess there's always an upset possibility in here, but Brian, I'm going to have to go chalk in here and make Improbable my pick. I just don't see him losing in after that very impressive race we saw at Churchill Downs.
Yeah, and the running style, if you can get a good trip from the rail, Matt, the running style fits. He should be off the lead of probably his stablemate and one or two others in here. But there are horses who potentially could rally. Dueling was a nice maiden winner, 2 starts back for trainer Jerry Hollendorfer. Came to Kentucky, and he ran kind of a middling race to be 6th in the Breeders' Cup Juvenile. A little more improvement out of that one, and he could be in the picture. King of Speed was really on a roll on the turf out in California with 4 straight good turf races. He's proven to be able to handle 2 turns. He didn't run very well in the Breeders' Cup Juvenile Turf. Probably didn't like the wet turf course at Churchill, but there's some dirt breeding there and some dirt experience there. So King of Speed's not out of the question. The long shot that I might like the most, though, Matt, is Extra Hope. That's a Richard Mandela runner. Really looked good when he got blinkers for the first time 2 starts ago, romping in a mile and a 16th, his first stretch out race. And then last time he kind of chased the speed around in the Bob Hope, but now stretching back out, maybe he has a shot. But I think we're both on Improbable in here, Matt. All right, we're going to go right from the males to the fillies. And again, a kind of a short field, six horses in both of these races, Matt. This is the 7th race on the card Saturday at Los Al. And this one's a little harder to figure the favorite. Maybe it's the half-sister to our Triple Crown champion, American Pharoah, chasing yesterday, trying 2 turns for the first time in the Starlet.
Yeah, you have to figure that, Brian, with the combination of the American Pharoah connection and Bob Baffert, that and she's certainly has a good enough record in there. I figure that she's gonna be the favorite in there. Half to American Pharoah, sired by Tappet, 2 stakes wins, not graded stakes wins, minor stakes wins. 3 for 4 in her career. She did come east. Her only losses in the Spinaway, where she had a pretty disappointing 7th place finish in there, and that race can certainly pop plenty of question marks in your head for this race, which is a grade 1.
Right, and if she is the favorite, as I think we both are leaning towards that she will be, although I think it will be close, there are enough questions for me to try to beat her, Matt. She's never been 2 turns. Sprinting has been her game. She's coming off 2 nice wins, which should give people confidence to bet her in here. But I worry that her best competition race so far was the Spinaway, which she really didn't do much at all. That was out on the East Coast at Saratoga, but now stretching 2 turns against some experienced fillies who have run 2 turns already. I think she's vulnerable. Wouldn't mind seeing American Pharoah's sister turn out to be really good, but I'm willing to take a shot against. Maybe the other Baffert is the second choice. That's Mother. She might be the fastest horse in the race, Matt. And she had to miss the Breeders' Cup Juvenile Fillies with a slight sickness there, but she's back off a very nice win at Churchill Downs. Like I said, she's speed. I'm looking at Vibrance, and especially if Vibrance is the 3rd choice. Now, I expect all 3 will get bet, but Mike McCarthy seems to have a real nice filly who's got some experience. I thought she ran a good race when she went out to Churchill Downs and was a solid 3rd, not far behind Restless Rider in the Breeders' Cup Juvenile Fillies.
Yeah, Brian, I agree with you there. And actually, in this race, I'm going to try and beat both of the Bafferts, not only in the top spot in the exacta. Also, Brian, I'm very impressed with Vibrance, and I'm very impressed with Michael McCarthy, whose barn is really doing good things. Vibrance ran a really nice 3rd in the Breeders' Cup Juvenile Fillies. Was 2nd in the Chandelier, also behind Bellafina. this is a horse that that could be doing and improving and doing better. Violence is turned out to be a really nice sire. Vibrance is going to be my top pick, but I'm also going to try in the exact to beat the Bafferts. Also, I'm going to use Oxy Lady in the second spot. Oxy Lady is from Calumet for Jack Sisterson, who is fairly recently out on his own. She won the Tempted in New York on November 2nd at really big odds of 36-1. But that's a nice a feather in her cap to be able to go out and win on that Aqueduct track. I like what I saw. I'm going to use Vibrance and Oxy Lady in an exacta box in the Starlet.
Yeah, 36-1 match. She emerged from a fog that day at Aqueduct and really just blew by in the stretch. Now, unfortunately, the filly that she beat, the Karen McLaughlin trained in Live, and didn't really do much in the Demoiselle. So I do have a question of the quality of this particular edition of the Tempted. But yeah, she obviously surprised that day in Aqueduct, and she is certainly eligible to run a good race out here. We know Jack Sisterson is the assistant to Doug O'Neill for years, so it's good to see him doing well out on his own. Oxy Lady should be the fourth choice in here, and she's a threat. I'm with you, though, on the top pick, Vibrance. The other two, Anaya Elrab is a maiden winner, and the other one sold. It looks like part of the speed equation. I think this will be a race with some speed. Mother, and probably Chasing Yesterday as well. Matt and I, we're going down a dangerous road here because we're picking against both Bafferts in the Starlet. We gave the nod to Baffert in Futurity, but we're trying to beat him in the Starlet. We both like violence. Matt, it's not too early. You promised me it's not too early, 5 months out or so from the Kentucky Derby, to start talking Kentucky Derby here on HorseCenter. I agree. Part of me thinks it's too early, but hey, it's fun. People want to talk Kentucky Derby. Let's do it. Matt, we're going to unveil our first top 10s for 2019, and I have a feeling our number one will come as no surprise to anyone, and that's both of our number ones.
Yeah, Brian, how can we not put Game Winner on there? 4 for 4, perfect record, convincing win in the Breeders' Cup. Juvenile, really hasn't done anything wrong. Bob Baffert, Mr. Kentucky Derby, he's going to be the 2-year-old champion. I don't think we have any choice but to put Game Winner at number one.
Yeah, Game Winner, Matt. Baffert, let me say this about Bob Baffert. Of course, he's won 2 Triple Crowns. He's won multiple Triple Crown races over the years, but 2 Triple Crowns recently. And no one has more 2-year-olds year in and year out of quality than Bob Baffert. This year, I actually considered 7 different horses from the Baffert barn to put into my top 10. I pared that down quite a bit, but Baffert's loaded again. But I will say this, there's no 2-year-old in the barn that was as spectacular or made such a flash as probably American Pharaoh second time out and Justify first time out as anyone on the list this year. Having said that, Game Winner's been a real pro. He stalks. He can come from a little bit farther off. He battles. He wins these races like a real professional. Done nothing wrong in all of his races this year. It's been impressive. And I will say this too, Matt. He came to Louisville already, and he got it done on the big stage. So that's something to beware of next year if you're trying to beat Game Winner. So yeah, clear number one for both of us. Now I'm going to talk about my number 2 because I've already talked about him a little bit, and that's Improbable. While I did say I wouldn't be shocked if he lost the Los Alamitos Futurity, just on those first 2 races, I had to put him at number 2. The Son of City Zip was that impressive at Churchill Downs. Coming off a maiden sprint out in Southern California, really looks like a horse who, like Churchill Downs, but is a horse of big talent. So Improbable for me is number 2. You're going to go a different direction, though, for year 2.
I am. Of course, I've got Improbable high on my list. Also, I've got Improbable in the number 4 spot for, all the reasons that we've talked about today on the show. I'm going in the number 2 spot with another Baffert, with Coliseum, who was a very, very impressive debut winner. I guess we could say that about all of these Bafferts, Brian. Son of Tappet, Godolphin homebred. I don't know, Brian. I think this may be early on what's looking like Godolphin's best chance so far to make some real noise in Derby. I think this one's got unlimited potential. I know Tappet has never won the Derby. Godolphin has never won the Derby, but they're going with Bob Baffert here, and they haven't done that very often.
Yeah, the temperament of Tappet does make me worry, and I haven't seen enough yet from Coliseum to put him nearly as high as you have on my list. Having said that, I respect the breeding. I respect what Godolphin is doing, trying to go after the Kentucky Derby in a different way and maybe a more aggressive way this year. So I had to include Coliseum on my list as well. He's down on number 6 on my list. Hey, Matt, the number 3 horse on my list, I think you have him as well. This is a big drink of water, this son of General Quarters for trainer Kenny McPeak. He won the Kentucky Jockey Club over the track recently, and he didn't win by much. And it might have looked like the other horse was running him down late, but I don't think they would have gotten by Signalman. I think this big horse, over 17 hands, is getting better. He's on the improve, and I think he's kind of a Derby horse. So Signalman, for me, the Kentucky Jockey Club winner, is my number 3, even though the sheer talent yet might not have been shown.
Yeah, Brian, I like the horse. Also, I've got him at number 7 on my list. Let's also remember that he finished a nice 3rd in the Breeders' Cup Juvenile. And like you said, Brian, this is a big horse, a talented horse, the kind that's going to get better and better and better as a 3-year-old, as he grows into that big body. He already looks pretty good.
Yeah, and he has faced big fields already a few times, so take that for what it's worth, Matt. I think, speaking of just sheer talent, we need to talk about your horse, because he was one of the most talked about 2-year-olds this year.
Yeah, number 3, I have Instagram. I put him there on what he did early in this 2-year-old year. I think he's being a little forgotten out there in Kentucky Derby futures and Kentucky Derby lists because of what his owner Larry Best did with him. He after his first couple big wins, he said, "Hey, I'm taking him out of training. I'm gonna send him to the farm. I'm gonna let him grow up. I'm gonna get him ready for a campaign starting late in the winter in 2019. He feels like the owner was a little bit inspired by what he saw from Justify. Of course, Instagram is being trained by Jerry Hollendorfer. And I think he's back in training now, actually. So remember, tremendous talent was flashed by that guy.
Yeah, absolutely, Matt. And I really struggled where to put Instagram on my list. I know he was one of the favorites in the first future wager that happened a little over a week ago. I ended up going the cautious route. So you have him at 3. I have him all the way down at number 8. I could be dead wrong rating him that low at any point during this Kentucky Derby trail. I just worry about a horse whose 2 races were 5 furlongs and 6 furlongs, and he hasn't been seen since the summer. Maybe he's best sprinting. That would be my slight guess right now, but I certainly recognize those 2 races as big talent. And the word was out even before he ever raced. So Instagram, obviously a horse of great talent. But I worry maybe not so much about the talent, but maybe there's more to this story why he didn't run after early August, and he's never been farther than 6. Hey, Matt, with my number 3, Signalman was a bit of a surprise, I think, but number 4, I really went out on a limb here, I think. And this is a Kelly Breen runner who was on the future wager, but he was something close to 90-1. I'm talking about Epic Dreamer. Nice looking son of Orb. I went back and looked at both of his races this year in New York. And he was probably in the key maiden race of the year. That's a race where it had the top three all look like graded stakes horses won by Vekoma. Epic Dreamer had a bunch of trouble that day. He was second. And then he came back in a maiden race, stretching out at a mile 16th, and Javi Castellano was just a statue on him in the stretch. As easy as can be. I guess the final margin was 2.5 lengths, but it was just one of those. Castellano knew he had the race won at the quarter pole. So Epic Dreamer, by the way, he'll be running in about a week down in Oklahoma in the Springboard Mile. So we'll learn a little bit more about Epic Dreamer from Kelly Breen soon.
Yeah, that's for sure. And you mentioned that maiden race. That's turning out to be a pretty key maiden special weight. And Kelly Breen, people may wonder about him. Don't forget, he did win the Belmont Stakes years ago with Ruler on Ice.
That's right, Matt. Hey, number 5 on our list, you saw him in person. He really did big things at Parks. We both have the same horse at number 5.
Yeah, Maximus Mischief had a lot of questions to answer after 2 easy wins at Parks, one of them against the 3-horse field. Now stretching out at Aqueduct in Remsen to a mile and an eighth. And that's not easy for 2-year-olds, Brian, to it's tough enough to go 2 turns, but at Aqueduct, it's a mile and an eighth when you go 2 turns. And Aqueduct is a deep track, a tiring track. But Maximus Mischief answered all the questions in that race with flying colors. Another big win, another big speed figure from this horse that's been training at Pennsylvania. No more Parks training for him. Trainer Butch Reed has taken him to Florida. He said that's always been their plan. Taking him to Gulfstream, where he will train down there, and assume he will get onto the Derby Trail in Florida.
Yeah, it's hard not to like what Maximus Mischief has done in his 3 races, Matt. I'll just caution you and caution everybody that I think the Remsen was almost an easy race, if you will. Yeah, it was a mile and an eighth on a pretty deep track at Aqueduct, and that's probably good for his conditioning. But on the other hand, it was a race that really didn't set up for him to lose in any way. So I still want to see him really tested. I just don't think it's happened yet. But another horse of big talent. Number 6 on my list, Matt, is a horse you already talked about, Coliseum. So let's swing to your number 6. And that's a horse I just barely mentioned a little bit already in that key maiden race from New York.
Yeah, my number 6 is Vekoma, a George Weaver trainee who had a big win in the Nashua at Aqueduct in early November. He came out of that race with another big buyer speed figure in there, one of the highest of the year for any 2-year-old. I'm a New York guy, so that's another New York horse that I'm throwing in there. Weaver opted to go down to Florida already with him and have him train down there. Skip the Remsen to get a little time and a little growing up, and he'll resume the Derby Trail either in Florida, or I don't see shipping back up to New York for the Jerome or the Gotham or the Withers as out of the possibility with this one.
Yeah, that's a horse I really struggled not putting in my top 10, Matt. And to tell you the truth, if I wasn't trying to get a few long shots here on my list, Vekoma would have been part of it. First 2 races, really good. And I like trainer George Weaver. Number 7 on your list, we've already talked about Matt Signalman. So I'm going to go to number 7 on my list. And I think you have him on your list as well. And that's Code of Honor, who I was looking forward to seeing in the Breeders' Cup Juvenile as one of my top picks. But, of course, he was sidelined by a little sickness, missed the Remsen, or decided not to run in the Remsen. So he's kind of wait-and-see mode for trainer Shug McGahee.
Yeah, Brian, I agree. I liked him a lot and was hoping to see him in the Remsen and the Breeders' Cup Juvenile. Got a little sick, had a fever, and then was training a little bit below par heading into the Remsen. So a couple of things like that, concern me a little bit, but he's down in Florida already. And as Shug takes his horses, so kind of we'll wait and see on that one, but looks like a horse that is a good late runner, and the distance of the Derby probably won't be an issue for him.
Yeah, I like the breeding, I like the trainer, and I like his first two races a lot. So hopefully he can right the ship and get really healthy in the winter and the spring here. Number 8 on my list was Instagram. We talked about number 8 on your list, Matt, is another interesting horse who's run well over the Churchill Downs track.
Yeah, my number 8 is Cairo Cat, son of Cairo Prince, and those horses are from the first crop of Cairo Prince. A lot of them are doing some pretty darn good things. I like the move that Cairo Cat made in the Iroquois. And again, he's taken some time off and going to come back out in 2019. Like Brian said, a win on the Churchill Downs track is always a feather in your cap, but I think this is another one that distance won't be an issue.
Okay, Matt. Hey, we agreed on number 1, number 5, and number 9, coincidentally. Number 9 is Mucho, Matt. And Mucho was one of the horses I really liked this summer, trained by big-time trainer Bill Mott. In fact, I asked him at Aqueduct how Mucho's doing, and he smiled and he said he's doing well. Mucho is the son of Blame, and I could see Blame certainly siring a Kentucky Derby winner before it's all said and done. Mucho looked good this summer. Didn't quite get there in the hopeful, but I like where he was at that point because I think he's a horse that will develop over time, and a 1.25 miles should be right up his alley. Hard to say that at this point since he's never done anything but sprint, but he just looks like a 1.25 mile horse to me.
I agree with you, Brian. From Claiborne Farm Connections, you can always recognize those Claiborne horses with their one-word names like Mucho, and who better than Hall of Famer Bill Mott to get a horse like this, a horse that we see really doing good things, running long. Who better than Mott to be patient and let the talent of a horse come out?
All right, Matt, we're almost done with our top 10s here. You have Code of Honor. We've talked about at number 10, so we're going to go to my 10 horse. Another horse I think that a lot of people aren't thinking about a lot is Uncle Benny. Uncle Benny has dirt experience, his first race. He's a son of Declaration of War. Turf. He went to Turf in his next few races, Matt, and I really like the way he ran in the Turf. I know you do too, because that Breeders' Cup Juvenile Turf was unlucky. He's going back to dirt for trainer Jason Service, and I think there's a lot here to like for Uncle Benny.
I agree, Brian. Oh, you remind me of that Breeders' Cup Juvenile Turf. That was a big horse for me on the wagering side. But putting that aside, I really like what I saw from him in that race. And there's also dirt in the pedigree on the female side in there, Brian. So I'm really interested in the move to the dirt. Talent like that, you got to give it a shot. That's how important the Kentucky Derby is.
That's it. And that's our top 10, folks, for the Kentucky Derby. Our first HorseCenter Kentucky Derby top 10 of 2019. For what it's worth, I hope you enjoyed that. Matt, I think I want to mention a few horses that were not on my list. I already mentioned Vacoma certainly could have been there. I think you want to mention one or two as well, but I'll just mention some Bob Bafferts. Roadster still could be any kind, the son of Quality Road. Mucho Gusto, the second choice in the Los Alamitos Futurity. If he turns out to be a two-turn horse, look out with that breeding. Tail of the Union, son of Union Rags, could be any kind. And Kingly, full brother to Mohaymen, won at first asking recently.
Yeah, sure, Brian. There are so many that can be on there at this point. And hey, like you said, at this point last year, we hadn't even seen the Kentucky Derby winner, the Triple Crown winner. So who knows? But it's fun. You and I put out, I don't know, these are the first Kentucky Derby top 10s I've seen, Brian.
Oh, they're out there, Matt. Kentucky Derby lists, people get crazy. We get crazy, but hey, it's just for fun. And hey, the next future wagers will be here before you know it. We got the Los Alamitos Futurity coming up on Saturday. We got the Springboard Mile the following week, Matt. Always fun to talk Kentucky Derby, no matter how early in the season it is. I want to thank our sponsor, Derby Wars, the best contest site out there. If you haven't yet subscribed to our YouTube channel here on Horse Racing Nation, please do so. How about a party shot from you, Matt, from the East Coast?
Well, as always, I want to thank our friend and colleague, Brett Workman, for putting together the show.
Yeah, Brett, thank you to you. And of course, our biggest thank you goes to all you that tune in each and every week. And if you're new, welcome to HorseCenter. We hope you enjoyed the show. Hey, Matt, how about we do this as we trail off? Let's watch, for my money, it was the best race since the Breeders' Cup. Let's watch this explosive late move by Uni, undefeated in 2018, as she wins the Grade 1 Matriarch out at Del Mar.
Kedura. Uni goes in the pink cap. Uni loaded. Daddy is a legend. Here's Rimska. They're all in. And away they go, and they all appear to come out smoothly. Farhan Mura going for the early lead. Kudara in the green colors on the outside. Mission Impassable joins them. Vasilika in the white blinkers settles in fourth. Mopetism is racing down at the rail. Daddy is a legend back in the sixth position. On the outside, Donna Bruja. Then we drop back another 3 lengths here to Luminoso, who's a good 10 lengths off the leaders. Rimska is racing in behind that. In behind them comes Valadorna, got to be a good 18 off the leaders. Uni is a long, long way back. Uni's racing back second last, then an excellent Sunset. Strung out over a mile as they go down the back stretch. Farhan Mura's clear now by almost 5. Mission Impassable is racing in the second position. In behind that comes Kadura. Now here's Vasilika in the white blinkers, 8 off the leader. Mopetism inside of her. They are then being followed by Insta Irma. Behind that comes Donna Bruhar, who's a good 8 lengths off the leaders. Another 4 lengths further back, we have Rimska trying to make headway. Valadorna's behind that. Uni is still second last. Uni's got a good 15 to make up, and then excellent Sunset. They come to the top of the lane. Farhan Mura going to be taken on by Mission Impassable. Whole wall of horses coming though. Vasilika is in there. Now Uni is starting to unwind on the extreme outside. Vasilika on the inside. Kadara is right there. Daddy is a legend. Uni coming like a rocket on the outside. Uni out of the clouds. And Uni, a captivating victory today under Joel Rosario. They get up to win it. Daddy is a legend. Finish second.